In the last segment, we looked at the way that the Watchtower distorts both their sources, Hislop and McClintock and Strong Encyclopedia, in example we looked at last time. This time we're looking at how they distort early church history to prove that the Trinity is false. On page 101 of Let God Be True, the next point that is made is that Tertullian introduced the term Trinitas, in Latin, into ecclesiastical writings, and Theophilus introduced the triad into Greek ecclesiastical writings, although neither was scriptural. That this proves nothing is easily demonstrated. The witnesses themselves use terms that are not scriptural, but which are descriptive of what they feel the Bible teaches. For example, theocracy, or the designation New World Society. Next, the book states that Constantine called a council in 325 which confirmed the doctrine of the Trinity. Concerning this doctrine, it is claimed, it thus came to be declared the doctrine of the religious organization of Christendom, and the clergy have ever held to this complicated doctrine. That's on page 101 of Let God Be True. This statement by the witnesses is contrary to all authoritative church history written on the subject. Any church history book will show the real purpose of the Council of Nicaea was to set forth the doctrine concerning the deity of Christ. Martin and Klann, for instance, state at least 86 sources, all of them soundly documented, prove beyond doubt that at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, the main issue was the Arian heresy. End of quote. That's from the book Jehovah of the Watchtower, by the way, the revised edition of 1963. That the latter part of the witness's statement is also false is shown by Berkhof, as he writes concerning the decision at Nicaea. And this is from Louis Berkhof, A History of Christian Doctrines, published in 1937. Quote, the decision of the council did not terminate the controversy, but rather was only the beginning of it. A settlement forced upon the church by the strong hand of the emperor could not satisfy, and was also of uncertain duration. End of quote. And then James Orr is cited. This is from James Orr's book, The Christian View of God and the World, published in originally it was published in the early 1900s. James Orr writes, it would be a shallow reading of history to attribute the defeat of Arianism in the early church to the anathemas of councils, the influence of court favor, or any other accidental circumstances. It perished through its own inherent weakness. End of quote. Finally, the writer in the witnesses' book, Babylon the Great Has Fallen, we now know is Franz, by the way, shows the contention in Let God Be True is false. The quote from Babylon the Great says, however, the Trinitarian decision of this council did not bring tranquility to the Eastern religious organization, and the Arian controversy continued to be carried on very warmly. Toward the close of his life, Emperor Constantine favored the side of anti-Trinitarian Arius, Constantine being helped in this direction by Eusebius of Nicomedia. So Arius was recalled from exile, and many of the Trinitarian bishops were banished. Then Gruss says, it was Eusebius of Nicomedia, mentioned above, an Arian bishop who baptized Constantine. Again, the witnesses show their inadequate scholarship and dishonesty, this time in church history. So his basic point here is that Franz in the Babylon book actually contradicts what someone had said in the more famous Let God Be True book, which is a mere 18 years before. After starting with no evidence, Gruss says, misrepresenting orthodoxy, using scripture out of context, not understanding the meaning of a word, misrepresenting the source of the Trinity doctrine, bringing in irrelevant material, and changing the events of church history, the witnesses make the authoritative statement, the obvious conclusion is, therefore, that Satan is the originator of the Trinity doctrine. That's page 101 of Let God Be True. Next time we'll look at some of the scriptural arguments the witnesses use for rejecting the Trinity. I'll put in a link to the deity of Christ in the early church. That's 3 videos linked together. I'll put the first one up. And also the basic library for Jehovah's Witnesses, which is Edmond Gruss's book, this book, Apostles of Denial, and the playlist, Basic Library for Jehovah's Witnesses. See you soon.